his musical talent, his technique, his intelligence, his wide education and the progress he has made fill me with satisfaction. As a pianist, but also as a teacher, I find him exceptional. I am sure that as a musician he will prove himself brilliantly in every field.
These are the words of Egon Petri, one of the greatest names in the piano world, a famous virtuoso whose concerts ended with more than 30 encores. It was not luck that brought the young musician to his door. It was the true gift of Dimitar Nenov, considered by many to be the greatest Bulgarian pianist of all time. Egon Petri's enthusiastic comments about Dimitar Nenov are far from exaggerated. Apart from being a brilliant performer, Dimitar Nenov was also a talented composer and an important figure in Bulgarian public life. He always dressed in white, had an affable character, and was described by his friends as an extremely refined and elegant man with exquisite taste and an impeccable sense of style and aesthetics. Driven by an inner striving for perfection, he gained encyclopedic knowledge in maths, astronomy, philosophy, history, and languages. Dimitar Nenov was born on the 19th of December 1901 in Razgrad, Bulgaria. His father was an officer and his mother was a former pianist. She was Dimitar's first piano teacher and the one who introduced him to the world of music. He started improvising at the age of 10 and wrote his first compositions when he was barely 13. Later on, he studied with Andrei Stoyanov, considered to be the founder of the Bulgarian piano school. Following the liberation from the Ottoman Empire, the young state of Bulgaria's social and cultural life flourished. Yet it still had to catch up with many of the achievements of other European countries. In these difficult times, Bulgarians were determined to educate their children in the major university centres of Europe. Striving to direct him towards a steady income, Dimitar's parents insisted that he study architecture in Germany, despite his undeniable musical talent. Thus, in 1920, Nenov went to Dresden, where he enrolled as a student at the Dresden University of Technology. During the hard, heavy and hungry years that followed, Dimitar Nenov worked as a pianist for the Thea Joel's dance company and a small cinema orchestra. He endeavoured to perform concerts and, at the same time, gained valuable experience in orchestration. With the cinema orchestra, he had the opportunity to experiment with different combinations of instruments.
My pianism is completely original, the result of an oral sense which always makes the piano sound with the most characteristic and noble chords or progressions. This is not the cumbersome technique of Schumann or Brahms, but the authentic piano technique of Schubert, Chopin, Liszt, or Scriabin. I myself can hardly say whether I look for images in the piano first, or whether it imposes them. It is already fully fused within me. Creativity and the piano are now inseparable. And not only pianism, but the harmonies themselves. This very specific colour applies when I write for an orchestra, voice or choir, anything at all, even when it has nothing to do with the piano.
With a degree in architecture, Dimitar Nenov returned to Bulgaria and worked for several years in various ministries and government agencies. He designed 2 railway stations, one of them at the capital, Sofia, as well as several private homes. Later on, he created a project for a conservatory of music and planned the educational activities that would take place there in detail. Over time, Nenov realised that not architecture, but music was his vocation and true calling in life. After specialising with the famous Dutch pianist Egon Petrie, he devoted himself entirely to performance and composition. Nenov was keen to teach at the newly established Bulgarian Conservatory, but was deterred by the requirement for a piano diploma. Therefore, in 1932, he officially graduated in Bologna. Later on, he took the position of music director at the newly opened Bulgarian National Radio. He laid the foundations for its organisation, which remain to this day. In 1937, he had the honour of opening the largest concert hall in the country, alongside the famous pianist Luban Cheva. In addition to his piano pieces, Dimitar Nenov's work includes a number of major orchestral works, including a symphony, ballad, 4 sketches, rhapsodic fantasy, 2 works for piano and orchestra, and numerous vocal and vocal symphonic works.
My only aspiration was to say something profound, and to say it in the most perfect way possible. Hence the desire to tear down models of form, hence my virtuosity, reaching all possible limits, just to find the worthiest form for my musical feelings. An almost fantastical virtuosity, not only at the piano, but with all the instruments I use.
In terms of conceptual innovation and quality of composition, Nenov's work is comparable to the greatest examples of art music by Stravinsky, Scriabin, Ravel, and Gershwin. His most famous work, the Toccata, is briefly reminiscent of another celebrated work written in the same period, Carmina Burana by the German composer Karl Orff. Toccata comes from the Italian word for touch. This piece comprises an impressive variety of ways to produce sound from the keys and is proof in itself of Nenov's great pianism. As a true master of the piano, he sought absolute perfection in his art. His compositions are supremely difficult and challenge the performer to reach the limit of their abilities. effects, think in terms of volume. And Nenov's compositions are conceived architecturally. We hear a smooth and logical series of layers and their arrangement on separate levels and floors. As a composer, however, Nenov felt underestimated and neglected. He felt that the Bulgarian audience was not sufficiently open-minded for his unconventional and modern approach to composition.
I'm not difficult to understand. On the contrary, I'm very clear. But one has to dig a little deeper into my music. My works may be liked upon the first hearing, but they are only understood on the 10th.
He tirelessly searched for ways to show his work outside Bulgaria, including through his contacts with world-renowned musicians, such as the pianist Marguerite Long. He met her in Warsaw at one of the most prestigious forums for pianists of the entire 20th century, the Chopin competition, where he was invited to be a member of the jury. His contemporaries recall that his concerts were legendary and unforgettable. Witnesses spare no compliments and describe the exceptional breadth, varied tone and virtuoso technique of his performances. He performed hundreds, if not thousands of concerts in every corner of Bulgaria, as well as abroad, in Germany, Italy, Poland, Austria, and Denmark. Nenov gladly included works by his Bulgarian colleagues in his rich repertoire. The lack of any personal ambition for fame and wealth often led Nenov to the brink of poverty. Dissatisfaction with his limited recognition as a composer intensified over the years. Yet, he still devoted himself to this great art, right up until his last breath. Shockingly and inexplicably, all of his recordings were destroyed soon after his death, all except one, which is probably saved by chance. Here, Dimitar Nenov does not perform his own work, but the second concerto for piano and orchestra by Franz Liszt. Dimitar Nenov reached the end of life's journey on the 30th of August 1953. He never deviated from his regard for honest and valuable art. With his dedication, inexhaustible energy and vitality, Nenov left a bright imprint on the cultural life of the country. Many of his students have established themselves as prominent Bulgarian musicians. Among them are Jassen Nikolov, Ivan Staykov, Trifon Silvanovsky, and Milena Milova. For talented and progressive artists, Dimitar Nenov remains an ideal role model. having dedicated his life to exemplary Bulgarian musical art.
Music speaks its own language, a language that bears no resemblance to any other. This is the language of pure tone, that creates its own worlds, clothes them in some abstract form. And yet, in making itself close to human thought, in acting as directly as possible, we would say, it becomes universal and extraordinarily real.